Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Ozcast.
All right, so we've got a whole stack of articles here about XRP, and it seems like everyone's kind of scratching their heads, right? So much positive news around Ripple's cryptocurrency, but the price,
Right.
it hasn't really moved the way people expected it to. It's like it's like having this brand new car with a powerful engine, but it's stuck in neutral.
Yeah.
So what's the holdup?
Well, it's really interesting because there are a lot of factors at play here.
Okay.
Some specific to XRP itself and some that are tied to the broader cryptocurrency market.
Okay.
It's not as simple as good news equals price jump.
Right.
There's a lot more nuance to it.
Okay, so let's lay out the good news first.
Yeah.
We've got that huge legal win that Ripple got against the SEC last year.
Right.
Which basically cleared XRP's name right.
Yeah.
He said it wasn't a security.
Exactly.
And then there's all this buzz about potential XRP ETFs and even some whispers of it being included in like a U.S. strategic reserve.
Yeah.
Plus, we're seeing all these new partnerships popping up all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely.
So on the surface, it seems pretty promising.
Right. Yeah, each of those developments individually could be a major driver for the price.
Right.
But there are some counterbalancing forces at play here.
Okay, so help me out here. If all the signs are pointing to go, why isn't the price of XRP taking off? What's keeping it grounded?
Well, let's start with the influence of Bitcoin.
Okay.
The entire crypto market often moves kind of in sync with each other, and XRP, despite its own unique use cases,
Right.
it often gets caught up in that tide.
Okay.
And right now, Bitcoin is facing some headwinds.
Okay.
Mainly macroeconomic factors like rising interest rates.
Right.
And that has a ripple effect, Chuckles, across the entire market.
So even if XRP has its own momentum,
Yeah.
it's still part of that larger ecosystem. It's kind of like trying to row a boat upstream against a strong current.
Yeah, exactly. And then you've got the lingering regulatory concerns.
Yep.
So Ripple won that case, that major case.
Yeah.
But the SEC hasn't completely given up, There's still a little bit of uncertainty, and that makes some big institutional investors hesitate. And a lot of U.S. exchanges are still limiting XRP trading because of this whole gray area.
So it's like they want to go all in.
Yeah.
But there's still this little voice in the back of their head whispering, what if?
Exactly.
Okay.
That makes sense. And then on top of that, you've got the supply and demand dynamics.
Okay.
So Ripple controls the release of XRP from escrow, and that adds to the available supply, which can moderate any price surges, at least in the short term.
Okay.
They're releasing 1 billion XRP each month.
Wow.
And historical data has kind of shown that this tends to stabilize the price rather than inflate it.
So it's like they're carefully releasing air from a balloon. It avoids a sudden pop, but also slows down how fast it rises.
Precisely.
Okay.
But here's where things get even more interesting. Some people are suggesting that there's potential market manipulation going on.
Right.
The theory is that big players, what they call whales,
Right.
they're intentionally keeping the price down
Interesting.
while accumulating more XRP for themselves.
Oh, wow. So what's the motivation behind that? Do they think that there's going to be some massive price jump down the line?
That's the idea.
Wow.
It's hard to prove, but it raises some questions about how these large holdings can influence price.
Right.
Remember, XRP is a utility-driven asset.
Okay.
Its value is tied to its real-world use in things like cross-border payments. So this adoption of it is going to be a gradual process.
So it's not like some of those meme coins that just shoot up on pure hype?
Right.
The value of XRP is actually tied to its real-world use.
Precisely.
Okay.
And while that adoption is happening, it's not happening at a pace that is reflected in the price currently.
Okay, so we've got this push and pull between all these positive developments
Yeah.
and then all these factors that seem to be holding XRP back. But before we get into that, I want to kind of back up for a sec.
Okay.
And talk about something you mentioned earlier. ETFs.
Yeah.
Can you just give us a really quick rundown on what those are and why they're relevant in this conversation?
Sure. ETFs, or exchange-traded funds, are basically like baskets of assets that you can invest in.
Okay.
And they're traded on stock exchanges, which makes them super accessible to investors.
Got it.
And the buzz around potential XRP ETFs is significant.
Okay.
Because it could open up XRP to a whole new wave of investors.
Right.
You know, imagine if you had an ETF that was tracking the price of XRP. That would make it really easy for people to invest in XRP without having to directly buy and manage the cryptocurrency itself.
Wow. That sounds like it could be a total game changer.
Yeah.
But what about these whispers of XRP landing in a U.S. strategic reserve? What's that all about?
Yeah, so this one's a little more speculative.
Okay.
A strategic reserve is essentially a stockpile of assets held by a country,
Okay.
often to kind of stabilize their own currency
Right.
or for emergencies.
Got it.
And the rumors are suggesting that the U.S. government might be considering adding XRP to its strategic reserves.
Interesting.
Now, why would they do that?
Yeah.
Well, it could be a sign of confidence in XRP's utility
Okay.
and its potential as a global payment solution.
Right.
But it could also be seen as a way to counter the dominance of other countries in the digital asset space.
So if the U.S. government were to actually add XRP to their reserves,
Yeah.
would that be like a clear signal of approval? Could that boost its price?
It's really hard to say for sure,
Okay.
but it would definitely be a major development.
Right.
It could signal that the U.S. government sees XRP as a legitimate and valuable asset, and that could have a positive impact on market perception.
Okay, I'm starting to see why this whole situation is more complex than it seems on the surface.
Yeah.
We've got all these positive developments happening,
Right.
but then we've got these other factors that are creating some friction.
Exactly. And it's that tension that makes this XRP situation so compelling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now that we've kind of laid out the good news
Yeah.
and the counterforces at play, I want to shift gears a bit and talk about XRP's unique utility,
Okay.
especially in the world of cross-border payments,
Yeah.
because it seems like that's a huge part of the story.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm ready.
And that's where we'll dive in next.
Okay, so we've talked about all those forces both kind of pushing and pulling on XRP's price.
Right.
But let's zoom in on its specific utility now, particularly in cross-border payments.
Yeah.
You mentioned that's where things get really interesting, so I'm all ears.
You're right. This is where XRP really shines.
Okay.
It's designed to bridge different currencies quickly and cheaply.
Okay.
Think of it as like a universal translator, but for money.
So instead those traditional systems that can take days and have all those hefty fees,
Yeah.
XRP can move payments across borders faster and more affordably.
Precisely. For example, let's say you need to send $1,000 to someone in another country. If you use a traditional bank transfer
Okay.
through SWIFT, it could take 3 to 5 business days.
Oh, wow.
And the fees could easily eat up $30 to $50 of your transfer.
Yeah, that's crazy.
With XRP, that same transfer could potentially be completed in seconds,
Wow.
with fees as low as a fraction of a penny.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
It is.
No wonder people are excited about its potential.
Yeah, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
And as more financial institutions and payment providers adopt XRP,
Right.
that utility translates into demand,
Okay.
which, as we know, can drive up the price.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
The more useful something is, the more people will want it.
Exactly. But it's important to remember that we're still in the early stages of adoption.
Right.
Mass adoption, especially in a sector as entrenched as global finance,
Yeah.
it takes time.
So it's kind of like building a bridge.
Yeah.
The more people use it, the more valuable it becomes. But it takes time, effort to construct it.
That's a good analogy.
Okay.
And while that bridge is being built, you have to kind of weather the storm, so to speak.
Right.
That's where those factors we discussed earlier.
Right.
The market volatility, the regulatory uncertainty that come into play.
So navigating those challenges becomes part of the process.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned XRP's.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast. Ozcast. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Unexploded potential earlier.
I did.
And I think that's a very apt description. There's a
bad at
sense
all.
of anticipation,
Yeah.
like a feeling that XRP is poised for something big.
Like that coiled spring we talked about.
Exactly.
Right.
But the question is, what will be the catalyst for that release of energy?
Yeah. What will it be?
Will it be wider adoption by major financial institutions?
Cool.
A clearer regulatory landscape?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a surge in interest from big investors?
Or maybe a perfect storm of all of those things aligning at the same time.
Precisely. And that's what makes this whole situation so fascinating to observe.
Now, from what I gather, one of the things that makes XRP particularly interesting is that it's not just about speculation.
Right.
It has this real-world use case that sets it apart from some of the more hype-driven cryptocurrencies out there.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's a crucial distinction to make.
Okay.
XRP isn't just a digital token riding the wave of speculative frenzy.
Right.
It's a technology with a purpose.
Okay.
A tool designed to solve a very real problem in the global financial system.
But how does that translate into actual value? What are some concrete examples of XRP being used in the real world today?
There are actually quite a few, and the number's growing steadily.
Okay, like what?
For instance, MoneyGram,
Okay, yeah, I've heard of them.
a global leader in cross-border payments. They've been using XRP for years to facilitate faster and cheaper money transfers. And they've reported significant cost savings and efficiency gains since integrating XRP into their system.
So that's a major player actually adopting the technology.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Any others?
Yeah, are there others?
Absolutely. So companies like Tranglo and SBI Remit,
Okay.
they're actively using XRP to facilitate cross-border payments in Asia.
Okay.
And even some banks like the National Bank of Egypt,
Wow.
they've partnered with Ripple to explore the use of XRP for international transactions.
It sounds like the adoption is happening,
It is,
even if it's not at the lightning speed some might have hoped for.
yeah, it's a gradual process,
Okay.
but it's happening.
Right.
And each successful implementation, each new partnership, it adds to the growing evidence of XRP's utility.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here.
Yeah.
It's not just about price fluctuations
Right.
and market hype. There's a fundamental shift happening in the way we think about and manage global payments.
You hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
And XRP is right at the forefront of that shift.
It's pretty exciting to think about the potential.
It really is.
Yeah.
But as with any investment or technological advancement, there are risks and challenges to consider.
Right, and we've talked about some of those already.
We have.
But I want to kind of switch gears for a moment
Okay.
and talk about the people who are actually using XRP. You mentioned that individual investors can play a role
Right.
even in a market where these whales exist.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Absolutely. I think it's important to remember that the crypto market at its core is about decentralization.
So it's about giving power back to the people.
Exactly.
Oh.
And while large holders can certainly influence the market, the collective actions of individual investors shouldn't be underestimated.
So it's not just a game for the big players.
Not at all.
Okay.
The price of XRP, like any asset, is ultimately determined by supply and demand.
Okay.
If enough individuals believe in its potential and start buying and using it,
Yeah.
that can create upward pressure on the price, regardless of what the whales are doing.
So there's power in numbers,
Absolutely.
even in the crypto world.
Absolutely. And that's what's so empowering about this technology. It allows individuals to participate in a global financial system that was once completely out of reach.
Okay. That's an encouraging thought.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even in a market that can seem dominated by large players, individual choices still matter.
They absolutely do.
Okay.
And that collective belief, that shared vision of what XRP could become, it's a powerful force.
Yeah, I'm starting to see why you said this is where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
We've gone from this simple question about price
Right.
to like this whole conversation about the future of global finance.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing journey.
It really is.
Yeah.
And as we continue this deep dive, it's crucial to remember that there are no guarantees in the crypto world.
Right. It's a world of possibilities, but also of risks.
Absolutely.
But even with those risks, the potential is undeniable.
Precisely. And that's what makes it all so captivating.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We talked about the forces affecting XRP's price, its unique utility,
Yep.
the challenges and opportunities it faces,
Yeah.
and the role that individual investors can play.
Absolutely.
But before we wrap up, there's one more thing I'm curious about.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about the future,
Yeah.
but what about the present?
Okay.
What's the current state of XRP adoption? Are people actually using it for everyday transactions?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it leads us to the heart of what makes XRP so compelling.
So we've talked about XRP's potential and the forces affecting its price and the gradual adoption we're seeing.
Right.
But what about like the here and now? Are people actually using XRP for everyday transactions?
That's the key question, right?
Yeah.
And the answer is, well, it's a bit nuanced.
Okay.
While XRP isn't quite replacing cash at your local coffee shop just yet,
Right.
it is being actively used in ways that are subtly changing how money moves around the world.
Okay, can you give us some like concrete examples?
Yeah, think about remittances.
Okay.
Millions of people work abroad and send money back home to their families.
Right.
Traditionally, these transactions involve high fees
Yeah.
and can take days to process.
Mm-hmm.
But companies like, Ripple's partners
All right.
using XRP are making these transfers faster,
Right.
cheaper, and more efficient.
Right.
That's a real impact on people's lives.
So it's about making those essential transactions smoother. Yeah. Especially for people who rely on them the most.
Exactly. And it goes beyond individual remittances, too.
Okay.
Imagine small businesses that need to pay suppliers in different countries.
Right.
XRP can help them avoid the hassle and expense of traditional banking systems,
Mm-hmm.
allowing them to operate more efficiently on a global scale.
Okay, so the real-world use cases are starting to take shape.
Yeah.
But if we're still in these early stages of adoption,
Right.
what needs to happen for XRP to become more mainstream? Like, what are the hurdles that need to be overcome?
Well, one major hurdle is, of course, the regulatory landscape.
Right.
More clarity
Mm-hmm.
and a more standardized approach from regulators around the world would definitely boost confidence among institutions and investors.
So less uncertainty would pave the way for greater adoption.
Precisely. Another key factor is awareness.
Okay.
A lot of people are still unfamiliar with XRP and how it works.
Yeah, that's true.
So as more success stories emerge,
Right.
and the media coverage shifts from speculation to real-world applications,
Mm-hmm.
we'll likely see greater interest and adoption from both individuals and businesses.
So it's about educating people
Yeah,
and showing them the tangible benefits.
absolutely. And then, of course, there's the ongoing development of the technology itself.
Right.
Ripple is constantly working to improve the speed,
Right.
scalability, and security of the XRP ledger.
Mm-hmm.
And as these advancements continue,
Yeah.
it'll make XRP even more attractive as a global payment solution.
So it's a combination of regulatory clarity,
Yeah.
increased awareness, and ongoing technological advancements.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ingredients for XRP to really take off.
I think you've summed it up perfectly.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
We started with what seemed like a simple question about price,
Right.
and we ended up exploring this whole intricate world of XRP.
Yeah.
Its potential,
Mhm.
its challenges, and its impact on the way we move money around the world.
It's quite a journey.
Yeah, and through it all, I think the most important takeaway is that XRP is not just some speculative asset.
Right.
It's a technology with a purpose,
Absolutely.
a tool designed to solve real-world problems.
Exactly.
And whether it achieves its full potential,
Yeah.
well, that's a story that's still being written.
It is.
It's a story filled with possibilities, but also uncertainties.
That's what makes it so fascinating.
Yeah, this deep dive has given me,
Mhm.
and hopefully you, our listener, a much deeper understanding of XRP
Right.
and its place in this evolving world of finance.
Yeah, it's not just about riding the hype wave.
Right,
It's about understanding the currents beneath the surface.
exactly. And sometimes those currents lead to unexpected and exciting destinations.
You never know.
Well, on that note,
Yeah,
that wraps up our deep dive on XRP.
it does.
Thanks for joining us,
It was my pleasure.
and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast. Ozcast. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.